Welcome to the very first episode of That Aircargo Girl podcast. This is a show all about connecting with professionals across the air freight and air cargo industry to share insights, offer advice for those looking to join the sector, discuss market trends and developments within our professional network here in the UK. I'm your host, Jazz Gallimore-Cox, though most of you will probably know me as That Aircargo Girl from LinkedIn and TikTok. I'm relatively new to the industry, currently working as a BDM at GSA. I'm also on the committee for Heathrow for the Young Forwarder Network with FIFA and the newly formed UCAC Youth Subcommittee. Always passionate about speaking with the next generation as somebody that joined late into their career in their late 20s. In today's episode, we sit down with Ekaterina Andreeva, with 13 years in the air cargo industry, having held various operational, sales and leadership roles at Volga-Depna Airlines, and is currently head of business development at Chapman Freeborn Air Chartering. We'll be talking about breaking barriers as women in air cargo, chartering projects, and advice for those wanting to get into this sector. As always, for more, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at That Aircargo Girl, or where most of you will know me from LinkedIn. Without further ado, let's dive into the first episode. So, Ekaterina,
Yay!
Thank you so much for joining me on
Thank you for having me.
First episode. I can't believe it. I've been talking about this for probably 6 months and chucking ideas around, and now we're actually here recording the first episode.
Yay!
So it's
Happy to be
exciting.
here. Thanks for having me.
And I think it's also really important to note that another fellow woman in business development in air cargo as well. So couldn't pick a perfect first guest to have on. So Thank you. So I think what's the best place for us to start, Ekaterina, is for you to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and how you kind of came to be in air cargo.
Yeah, so basically I worked in air cargo all my life, and started back in 2012 in an airline called Volga-Depna in a little Russian town called Ulyanovsk, in working in operations. And the reason probably I wanted to the reason I picked this kind of career path was because two of the generations of my family worked in aviation as well. They used to work on the aviation.
Know that.
Yeah, no, really.
That's cool.
So they actually they worked in the plants that built Antonov 124s. This one of the biggest ramp aircraft in the world. They used to work on this plant. They used to actually build those planes, and my granddad had a very high up role. He was deputy operations director, responsible for 12,000 people. So,
wow.
So it was quite a kind of a natural choice, the aviation, and we had this airline Volga-Depna, which dealt with international aircraft chartering. So when I was at uni and I was looking to pick a work experience, then I picked that company, and I was offered a job after I've done my work experience there. So that's how I started in aviation, and I kind of never left.
So you come from a line of people in aviation, and you kind of just continued that on. Yeah. That's brilliant. I think it's really interesting to see how people get into this industry, whether it's through family connections or whether it's something that they've been inspired or they've studied at university, and how they find their path. And everybody's kind of got their journey and their story in, and it's really fascinating to hear of your heritage within aviation as well. So tell me a little bit about kind of the beginnings of your career. What were you kind of up to, and what did you do when you first joined the industry? Yeah,
so originally I started working in aviation security, actually, and but it was when I was still at uni, so I was combining my studies with the work, and my job allowed to do that because I could do night shifts and working on weekends. So that's how I started. Then when I finished uni, I wanted to do something more challenging, more exciting, and I always loved working with different cultures, different people, and so so I was offered an opportunity to go to sales, and that's how I found myself there. And I worked in a few offices of Volga-Depna then, and I was offered to move to the UK as part of the job, obviously. And moved here in 2016, and I've got promoted a few times as well. Was quite lucky, and so I had a number of sales jobs, but also a number of management jobs in Volga-Depna, and my last job was commercial director. I left the company a couple of years ago, and then I joined Chapman Freeborn Air Chartering, where I currently work as head of business development. And it was not the obvious progression, but I really like it because I think my experience, because I've spent over 10 years working as a cargo airline. And I think it gave me a very good experience and understanding of the market to then join an aircraft charter brokerage.
Absolutely.
And especially Chapman Freeborn is a company with such a well-established brand. And we have so many experts working from all sorts of different parts of the industry. So I think it couldn't be a better company for someone who wants to work in aircraft chartering.
Amazing. So in terms of kind of the differences between the two, kind of what kind of led you more towards the commercial sales side rather than the operational side that you began in?
If we look at the companies itself, I think when you work for an airline, you represent a product. And so when you work for an airline, you spend a lot of your time trying to make the product better. And basically, you don't represent yourself, you represent the aircraft. And people don't come to you for you. They come to you because you have the aircraft.
Absolutely.
But then when you work for an airline for a company such as Chapman Freeborn, for the brokerage, people don't come to you for any particular aircraft. They come to you because it's you and because of the people that you represent. So, if we put it this way, if you work at an airline, basically you represent a product. And then if you work as a broker, you represent like a service and you represent people. And so it's more important not to refine the product. I mean, obviously it is very important still, but it's also very important to build a relationship with all kinds of different people. And I just find it a bit more interesting, I think, the relationship building part. And it's also like the biggest part of working in sales. You meet different people, you build relationship with different people, you establish this trust. And I think this is the best part of the job, really, because of the people that we have in our industry. So I think that's kind of what brought me into sales from the operations.
Absolutely. And look, I completely resonate that myself because, as working in a GSA for myself currently, it's more about the people and the relationships you build and the services that you provide. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether you're at this company or you're a different company, you have those long-standing relationships with people and you build that trust and that rapport with them. Yeah. And that's for me what I love about working in sales and business development as well. So, I can really resonate with that kind of coming from the operational into the sales side, and also not working directly under an airline brand, that you are really selling yourself rather than kind of the airline. And that's really a unique perspective. Talk us through kind of a typical day for you. What does that look like? Because I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see from another business development person, professional, kind of what your typical day looks like. What are you up to?
I think you won't be surprised if I tell you like there is no typical day.
That's Aircargo for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have a plan and then your day starts and everything just kind of happens. Yeah. Although I do my best to try and manage my schedule, but also I think that like the industry that we work in is so unpredictable and a lot of things happen at the same time. But so it's really difficult to have kind of like a typical day or like an ideal day. But I think what's important in our job is obviously it's a people-facing job. So I try to stay on top of my basically I try to stay on top of my schedule, and I try to meet as many people as possible. I'm going to various industry events, to various conferences, to various trade shows. Also try obviously a lot of face-to-face meetings with the customers and sometimes with suppliers as well, although I'm not personally not working on the supplier side that much. And obviously, as we all have the emails, we all have the different messaging platforms where you also need to keep an eye on. We have the LinkedIn, so we need to manage all that and to make sure that we are doing our job and looking after ourselves just on top of that. So it is quite difficult to manage, I think, so sometimes at times, but basically you need to do your best.
There's a lot, isn't there? And I guess, I think it's important to recognise that in the roles that we do, it is very challenging and it's turbulent at times, isn't it? And the workload can become huge. Yeah. So how do you kind of manage that workload and stress? I think, in this day and age, it's really important that we talk about kind of the wellness side of our professional roles, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, 100%. I think when I first started working in the industry, I was quite overwhelmed, and I was a bit upset when I couldn't manage all the aspects of the work, especially, for example, when you have a charter that goes wrong and you can't find a crane somewhere in Singapore, for example, and the customer is calling you, and then the customer's customer will be calling you sometimes to to pass on the grief. And then obviously it all when I just started in the industry, it was a huge strain on my mental health, I'd say. But I think with the years, because I've been in the industry for 13 years now, I think I kind of learned to embrace the challenges, and because I understood that this is basically what we do, and the air chartering industry is basically it's built on the unpredictability of the market, because normally people don't charter if everything goes well. You have a very tiny segment of the air chartering market which is actually planned, and we are talking about something like the satellite shipments, for example, because this is something that is normally planned like months in advance. But the majority of the charters are very ad hoc, and normally these charters, they happen if something goes wrong in the supply chain, because people don't normally plan charters. And so basically you are part of this very ad hoc, emergency-driven industry. And I just think if you work in air chartering, you need to embrace that part, and you need to understand that issues will happen, and you need to focus on the things you can control other than the things you can't control, and just do the damage control, basically, and not worry too much about it, because things will always happen. And you just need to do your best to manage the expectations and to manage what you can control, other than worrying about the parts that you can't.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that is across our whole sector, right? And managing the things that you can control. Nothing is 100% when we're talking about aviation. There are things that happen within those supply chains, and as much as we'd all like to say everything goes smoothly, there are times when it doesn't. Definitely, and it's managing the customer's expectations. And you touched on it a little bit in kind of air chartering. It's kind of the emergency situations. It's usually not planned. So how do you deal with that situation where something has already gone wrong, and they're reaching out to you to charter to fix probably a supply chain issue, or they've got tight deadlines? How do you manage that?
So it very much depends on the situation, and I think what's important from our side is to speak, to work very closely with the customers to understand their needs, because sometimes the customer is very something happens, but the customer is extremely cost sensitive, for example, and sometimes the customer would come to you and they say, well, we need to send this spare parts like tomorrow, but our budget is less than $1,000, for example. But and so in this way, when you offer them a charter price, and they would just say, well, sorry, we'll just negotiate with our customer, and we'll just agree on the later on the later shipment date, the later arrival, exactly. But sometimes, so you need to understand the reasoning behind what customer is asking for, and you need to understand what's important for them, to then work together on building this perfect solution for the customer. And sometimes it doesn't exist, as in the situation I've just told you, but sometimes you can, but in many ways you can work together with the customer to make sure that you basically fulfill what they want. And I think what's extremely important in our business is good relationship with our suppliers, because it is very I would say our entire business is built on relationship, and it takes years for sometimes even decades for a good air charter broker to build a relationship with their suppliers. And this is I think this is a good part and the bad part of the industry, because the good part is that when you are an air charter broker, or when you are an airline, when you have this relationship in place, basically you know people that you work with very well, and you basically know what to expect from another. You basically know how to work together, and people and the airlines would get back to you very quickly, and then you would get good rates. Normally, you can negotiate with them, etc. You know their operations people. Sometimes you can get the schedules from them very, very easily. And so that's the good part. But the bad part, I think, for the newcomers to the industry, you don't get the same treatment from the airlines. And because I know from my part, and I know it from when I used to work for an airline, this is just something that happens in the industry, unfortunately. Because when there is a broker that reaches out to you that's very well, then you can pick up the phone, you can send them a WhatsApp,
Absolutely.
and you work very well together. But then when the name is new, you don't know this person, and then I think it's just only it's a human reaction to be cautious, a bit wary, and I think this is the difficult part of the industry, because it's quite difficult to build those relationships, and it takes time, really.
Exactly.
And, yes, and so I think the key to be like someone good in this industry is to be able to build those to be able to willing to build those relationship with your suppliers. Otherwise, you won't be able to give the good service to your customers.
Absolutely. And I think that you touched on a key point there as well, in kind of the building of the relationships, and it's that longevity of the relationships as well. And it's taking those time to build those partnerships, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a number of years, and that's the risk within the brokerage sector, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's why from your point of view, it's good to work with Chapman Freeborn, because you've got the name and they've been around for a long time. So that must make your role a lot easier.
A lot easier, yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. So I guess we've kind of delved into chartering, and I guess I'm curious to know kind of what's your most memorable or most exciting kind of charter product that you've worked on in your career.
There were so many, and it actually there were so many. But I think I have a few. I think I always kind of enjoyed the urgent ones. I'm not sure why. It's just the reward part, because when something comes in the morning, for example, and then you do your job, basically you set everything up, and then in the evening the flight is already happening. So I think this is the one that I enjoy a lot, but I'm not going to talk about this one because I don't think they're I have any of them that are particularly interesting. But I think one of my favorite projects that I worked on was a project to deliver engines for the power stations in Mauritius from Madagascar.
Wow!
And it was a project that I worked on for a couple of months. And the tricky part was that the customer wanted to fit two of those power turbines into the plane, but it was the whole payload, including these turbines and the frames and the loading equipment, it kind of it almost exceeded the maximum payload for the aircraft. And we know that we had a couple of competitors that we were working against that at the moment. And so I decided that I want to do my best and just to make it happen that we actually do offer this option with the two engines on board. And so I worked a lot with the technical department, I worked a lot with the crew department, with the load planning. And so we made sure that we made the actual payload of the aircraft a bit less, and we got the special exemptions. We got special exemptions from the flight crews and from the engineering teams to make sure that we actually can carry this payload. And we arranged for our representatives to be sent to the to those actual airports to supervise everything. And so I built together that package, and so basically we managed to load two of these turbines into one plane, which basically cuts the number of flights that we did in half compared to what our competitors were offering. And basically it provided a huge saving for our customer, and that's why the customer awarded the project to us. And
Amazing.
So yeah, I think this was one of the most interesting and complex also projects that I worked on, but this is something that I've been very proud of, because I think it took, took a lot of time and effort to build, and we were able to offer something unique to the customer, which saved money and then provided electricity to the country. So
that's incredible. Do you know what? And it's really interesting to see you talk about all these departments and the collaboration that has to go in to actually these projects. So Can you talk me through a little bit more about the collaboration and how that kind of comes together, and kind of how you have to build those partnerships to move a project like that?
I think the difficult parts about internal collaboration between the various airlines departments is that a lot of people, you need to know, first of all, you need to have very good relationship with the people that work there, but also you need to understand how they work, because I think if you just come to the department and ask them to do something which is basically outside of their job description, or which slightly does not comply with the regulations. I mean, I'm not saying that's it's not compliant with the regulations, but it's just, there are people sometimes they work by the book, basically.
Exactly.
They just follow the instructions and they say, well, sorry, it's not in the instructions.
Can't outside of that box.
Yeah, and I think a big part of working with this department is kind of sitting with them and talking to them. So because I think when I started working in the industry, I was really I'm still I'm very proactive, and I'm willing to go the extra mile. And when I just started working with in the industry, I thought that everyone is like that. But then I came to the realization that unfortunately that's not the case. And sometimes unfortunately there are many people, and not just in our industry, but in every industry, there are many people that just they don't want to go that extra mile. They just want to basically do the bare minimum, and they don't want to do anything outside of their job description, basically.
It's challenging, isn't it?
It could be quite challenging, but I think when we need to get something from the other department, for example, I think we need to do the extra steps from our side. We need to basically sit with them. We need to talk them through what they need to do. We need to explain what will be the implications for the airline, for example, if we don't do it. And basically we need to persuade people to do their jobs a little bit better sometimes. And I think this is the key of working, not just in air chartering or in our industry, but in every industry, I think. Because I think if we want to do like a good product, we need to be we need to make sure that we are doing some extra steps, that we are going that extra mile to make sure that we are doing the best for the customers.
Absolutely right, and that's the key part of what we do is to go the extra mile for our customers and find a solution that fits. And part of that journey is that collaboration with the operational team. For me, it's liaising with the ground handling agents, and similarly for you, it's kind of how do you bring people on that journey with you? How do you persuade and inspire and encourage people to do more than the bare minimum? Especially when you're talking about a project of your of that scale, it's not quite so simple. So it's getting people to think outside the box. So, and I guess much like myself, I guess I'm enthusiastic and I want to learn and I want to push and drive. And you're right, there are many people that are comfortable with just doing the bare minimum, and how do you inspire them to get up? It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
So I guess we kind of move on a little bit, and I'm interested to know kind of how technology and innovation is kind of shaping in your industry. AI is at the forefront of most people's mind in aviation, and digitalization. How does that impact, or what is going on in your world in terms of technology or innovation currently?
I think if we look at the air cargo industry in general, there's been, and if I look at the past 10 years, for example, of the industry, I think the technology influenced the general air cargo industry quite a lot, because when I just came into the industry, I don't think anyone was really taking online bookings seriously. I think that the airlines, they had this option to make these online bookings, but not all of them, and it was quite complicated, and people just preferred to just talk to the sales teams and the reservations agents to do the bookings. But I think what we've seen in the past 5 years, especially when the COVID hit, I think we've seen a huge development in the general air cargo sector with the online bookings. And we also, obviously, there are a lot of online booking platforms as well, where airlines post their capacity and the rates. So I think we've seen a lot of developments recently in the general air cargo sector. But if we look at the chartering sector, the cargo chartering sector, I can't see that there were a lot of developments. There were a couple of efforts by a few companies to bring something like a booking platform. Like, for example, in the private jet sector, there is this platform called Avinode. So it basically so it's a platform where you go in, and basically it's kind of like a Skyscanner for private jets.
Private jets.
Yeah, but so we don't have any kind of equivalent of that in the in the cargo chartering sector. And there were a couple of efforts, but it didn't. I don't think anything came to fruition, at least not on the bigger scale. And I think the reason for that is that again, a lot of the industry is represented by different types of airlines, and some of the airlines are quite ahead in the in the digital transformation initiatives, but a lot of the airlines that we work with, they're not really, and they're not really willing to invest. It's just not something that they want to invest in, really. And I think if you want to have like a platform or a tool that would cover the chartering sector, then you need to have all the players in the industry basically sign up to that and
Absolutely.
be willing to be part of it. And currently I don't see that happening because a lot of the industry players, a lot of the airlines, they're simply not interested in that, and they're quite happy. And we even have a couple of airlines that basically they would tell us the way that they want us to approach them. For example, they would say, well, I'm not really comfortable when you are calling us, please send us an email, for example. So I mean, and if you go to these airlines and if you say to them that, hey, we want you to sign up to this platform, they would just say, well, sorry.
That's it. And then
it is quite challenging, I think, if you want to do anything in that kind of a sector. So I think we are, as in like air chartering industry, as the cargo sector, we are quite far off. I'd
behind.
say,
I think as well, if the airlines aren't in a stage where they want to approach digitalization as a charter broker and needing multiple options and multiple suppliers, you don't want to put yourselves short of having those relationships with 100%. Certain airlines and then not being able to give solutions to your customers. So, if the airlines aren't there in terms of digitalization, then you've got to be where the airlines are.
Exactly.
And if that's still kind of 10 years down the road, or whether it even gets there, aviation, especially on the cargo side, is more old school and it is more, about building those relationships rather than digitalization.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll be intrigued to see what happens in the future.
Me too, because that's because I think when I was asked about the same question about 5 years ago, I was quite sure that we would make some steps in that direction, and I don't see any steps. I mean, I see some steps, but I don't see anything revolutionary happen in that sector. And I would be very intrigued to see what the future brings, really. And that's
absolutely. And I think it's challenging, right? When you've got complex shipments as well, right? How do you bring that into the digital world and without having a human intervention in terms of finding the right solution? I'm not sure AI or a computer can do that, and it'd be quite scary to think if AI could do that, because where does that leave the people that are the backbone of this industry?
Exactly.
If computers can do it.
Exactly. But I think for the time being, AI is not quite well developed, because actually a couple of weeks ago I went to ChatGPT, and basically I sent them like a dummy request, and I said, well, what would you recommend me to do with this shipment? And so basically I sent the dimensions and the weights and everything to ChatGPT, and he recommended me wrong, so he didn't recommend the right aircraft. So I was like, well, no, sorry, Mr. Dear ChatGPT, you are wrong.
I love it. So Ekaterina is going to be teaching ChatGPT how to charter.
Not teaching that, but I think it just shows. But because I think this is something that's, the door dimensions of the aircraft is something that the AI could probably learn from the open sources, but it can't pick it up. So. Yeah, I guess the industry is not quite ready to replace us all with AI, which is good news for us.
Thank God for that. Exactly. So, and it's good for us as well.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things. A lot of people in business development and in sales within Aircargo are looking at these booking platforms coming more to the forefront and thinking, where does that leave our profession? Mm-hmm. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens in the future. So tell me, what would you say is the most rewarding part of your role?
I think that's easy. That's it. The most rewarding part of the role is when the charter is completed. So this is the most rewarding part. And I think the best part of the job that we have is being able to attend those loadings and in the best case scenario to fly on the aircraft which you actually charter. So because it's basically, I think we are basically, I think as a generation, we are also detached from what we do, because most of the job just happens, on the emails or in Teams or in WhatsApp, in the calls. So most of the people don't actually see the results of their job, and I think it's really, really rewarding when you can actually see, even if it's just the pictures. But I think the best part that you can do is just to actually attend the loading, to actually fly on the plane that you've chartered. This is just amazing, because it just shows that this is what I've done. This is not by yourself, but you've been a part of this project, and this is extremely rewarding.
Absolutely, right. And we all talk about the practice and how you actually and how these jobs come to fruition and how they actually operate. And we spend months or even weeks trying to get this business on board or to find a solution. And when you actually achieve it, going and seeing it is
amazing.
It's amazing, you know, and it's not behind an email. It's actually seeing it in practice, in real life. And I agree, that is rewarding. And, you know, for someone like myself, I've only been in this industry coming up 2 years, actually getting to see the aircrafts and seeing the loading, it puts everything that you learn theoretically in visual, and you can see it, so then you can actually take that experience into the next thing that you do, and that makes a massive difference.
100%.
So I agree with you. So where have you been where's the most exciting place that you've
I'd say Barbados.
Wow.
It was an OG flight, actually.
Was it?
It was an OG flight. We flew an engine from Madrid to Barbados, and then we spent 24 hours in Barbados, and then went back with a faulty engines back to Madrid.
Wow.
So it was a nice little trip.
Nice little trip. Yeah, it was a shame it's only 24 hours of sunshine. So I guess, Ekaterina, kind of we've touched on air chartering, we've touched on your career. I guess the one thing I'm curious is kind of air cargo is such a male-dominated industry. How have you found that as a woman? And you've held various leadership roles as well, which is amazing for for women in this sector. How have you, what has your experience been?
It's been quite positive generally, I'd say, and I think actually my biggest hurdle in the industry was the very initial part when I was just discussing about getting I was just talking about getting into sales with my then future manager. And basically, I was supposed to be the second woman in the department, full of men, and there were a few dozens of men. And basically, my future manager said to me, "That's basically we're going to put you on probation." But and he said, I personally don't believe that a woman would be able to do that job.
Wow!
And he said it's nothing personal, it's nothing against you, but he said women don't really stick in our department. And he said, well, let's see how it goes for you. But he said, I'm quite pessimistic.
Oh my gosh!
It was a long time ago, and he's a really nice man. And to be fair, I was really fortunate with all the different managers that I had during my career. But it was the biggest hurdle because I was really self-conscious about my gender when I just started, because oh my god, I'm not supposed to be.
I'm not surprised.
But I think it was actually the hardest part to actually to get into that. But then when I started working there, and I started building my knowledge, my experience, and I started building this relationship with my colleagues and with the industry partners. And I think it with every year it got easier, because I think when you are in the industry and when you have the certain amount of knowledge and experience, people they start treating you as a professional, and just and not as a woman, and which I think is a very good part of the industry. As I mentioned before, I think we have really good people working in the industry, and I very rarely had any problems with people treating me differently because I'm a woman. But I think a lot of what we have in our industry and a lot of recognition is really merit based, and which I think is a very good part. But yeah, for me, I think the hardest part was to actually
that initial hurdle.
That initial moment. Yeah,
that's it. And I think for a lot of people, it's probably the preconceptions of the industry, right?
Yeah.
And that maybe it's more male dominated, but actually it is changing over time.
It is, yeah.
And you can see from industry events that both of us have attended that there are probably much more women in the room now than there maybe was 10 to 20 years ago. Yeah. And we are just professionals, and as you said, we should be on our merit. And that's the great thing about this industry is once you've proven yourself and you've learnt your skills and got your knowledge, you are treated as a professional, which is fantastic. And it's just about how do we get more younger women into the industry now, I guess, and how do we stop it from being perceived as a male dominated industry.
And I think we are as an industry we are having a lot of progress in that, because I think even if we look at the industry in general, I think the numbers from last year were that currently in the aerospace industry, there are 24% of women, which is a very low part. But for example, if we look at my company, Chapman Freeborn, we have 45% of women working in my company. So it's almost half. And also, if we look at 2024 in Chapman Freeborn, there's been a 48% increase in the women holding management positions, which is, again, something else, because it's one thing just having a woman work in the company, but another thing having women promoted. So I think this is, and I know a lot of companies, I think in Wexco, it's also quite a high proportion of women working in the company, which is great, again. And unfortunately, it's not something that we see in every company, but again, I think if we have companies like ours, looking at gender balance and supporting women, promoting women, then I think we are definitely moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And that's it, right? It's about getting companies to be more progressive, to have more women in their workforce. And it's not just in their workforce, in senior positions. And 100%. As you said, we're lucky here at Wexco that in our senior positions, we do have a high percentage of women. And hopefully we can inspire more companies to have the same and to look at those more women in those more senior leadership positions. Yeah. So I guess having spoken kind of about women and getting into the industry, as a general kind of, what advice would you give to anyone wanting to join air cargo or into chartering? What would you say to somebody kind of 10 years younger than you looking to get into the industry?
I would say just go for it. Just go for it, and I think it's important not to overthink stuff, because again, as you said, that's like there are a lot of preconceptions about our industry, that it's very male dominated, that it's hard for women to break into. But I think if we just go for it, and and do our best, and be knowledgeable and learn more about the industry and establish connections, and I think everyone will be better off, really. So I think my advice would be not to overthink things, but just go for it and do your best. So
absolutely. Look, I resonate with that. You know, those people within the industry that are listening and know me know that I joined Aircargo at the age of 29, quite late into my career, and after university I went off and did other things, and it was never really an industry that I had thought about, even though my family work in logistics. It kind of took me a long time to join the industry, and what I've found in this kind of space and with the network that I've built is that actually, if you go for it, if you believe in yourself, if you have the confidence, if you learn your skills, learn your knowledge, and you build that network of people that can build you up and give you that foundation, then actually you can have a really successful and a really rewarding career in cargo. Yeah. And every day is different, right?
Yeah, 100%. Can't agree more.
There's never a day where you stop learning. I don't know about you, but I find every day I'm learning something new all the time.
Yeah. And there are so many opportunities.
Absolutely. So I guess, you know, what other positives could you give our listeners about air cargo or air chartering? What other positives are there?
There are, well, I think as we already discussed, I think there is no day the same, and it is very interesting industry. It is very varied. It's rather ad hoc, so it's not something that you can predict, and it could be a bad part actually when you're being asked to forecast something and you really can't. But I think it's also the good part, because you never know when the day will take you, and it is quite exciting, and it is very rewarding when you actually see the results of your role. But it's also, I think, if we talk about the initiatives that we have in our sector and in various companies. For example, if like Chapman Freeborn is part of the Avia Solutions Group, which is a large conglomerate and comprising a lot of different aerospace related businesses, and we have this wonderful initiatives where we have senior female managers mentoring mentoring women, and so I've been quite lucky to be a part of this initiative for more than a year now, and I think this is something very rewarding when you have a certain experience and you are able to share it with a new generation of women just coming into the workforce. And I think this is like the various mentorship schemes is something that every company is actually able to establish, and it doesn't it will not take a lot of additional resources, but it will massively help the new generation, not just of women, but just a new workforce, really. The new generation of workers that are coming into the air cargo and air chartering markets. And I think if we look at the industry in general, I'm also part of the next gen group at the Air Charter Association. And as part of this group, I'm promoting the industry to students.
Wow.
And I'm visiting universities, and I'm visiting various trade shows as part of the next gen group. And basically, I'm telling students about our industry and about various companies and various roles that they could take in the industry, because I don't think that we are talking a lot about our industry, because I think it is something rather niche, and it's something that people don't really talk about. They don't really know about it, and I think that we need to be more vocal about our industry and the good that we do. And about the good projects that we're doing, for example, in humanitarian spheres and in the various other industries. I think we need to be more vocal and bring more younger people in our industry.
100%. Look, I completely agree with you. You know, having gone to university, having had family in logistics, working at Air Cargo was never something that. And I live 15 minutes away from Heathrow my entire life, you know, and never thought about a career within air cargo. And I think it's important that as young professionals ourselves, that we actually go out and inspire the next generation, you know. So being part of those groups and being ambassadors and mentors is really important to get the next generation. You know, we're all aware that this is an aging industry, and eventually, if we don't do something now, the knowledge that we have will start to disappear. And what we need to do is to kind of get new people into the industry while we have the knowledge, and train them and mentor them. And it's amazing to hear that you're doing all those things, because that's close to what I'm trying to achieve in my role. And, you know, and that's why starting this podcast is important for me, because hopefully we can share stories such as yours and inspire younger people to think of air cargo or chartering as a career path for them to take. Yeah. We've kind of talked about you mentoring. Have you had a specific role model within your career, or anyone that you've kind of has inspired you?
I actually, I was, as I said, I was really lucky throughout my whole career. I had amazing managers, and I've been just incredibly lucky. But I think if I think about anyone in particular, Rusi Batlivala, who is the chairman of Chapman Freeborn, has been he's been a real inspiration for me, and because the career that he had and like the journey, the professional journey that he's been on is just incredible, like in itself. But also he's a very positive and optimistic person, like in general. So I think he's a very inspiring figure for me, and not just because I work in this company, but also like before I joined Chapman Freeborn, he's always been someone that I kind of the journey that I kind of followed. So it's definitely an inspiring figure for me.
That's amazing, and I think it's hard within such a fast-paced environment and such a challenging environment to find mentors that are positive and optimistic. We need that, right? Because some days can feel quite stressful, and it can be a lot. So having a mentor or someone that inspires you that's on that positive can make a massive difference in your life and your well-being, right? Yeah. I guess we've spoken a lot about kind of role models and kind of your career. Do you, kind of on a lasting thought, do you have a philosophy or a mantra that you kind of try to live by?
I actually don't, but I think generally as a person, I think professionally, as we've already discussed, the industry is quite it could be quite challenging, because there are a lot of moving parts, and a lot of issues happen across every single charter that we do. And I think for me as a person, I think it's very what I live by is I just try to be very optimistic, and I try to face the challenges with an open mind, and And I kind of understand that it's not possible to solve all the issues that we come across, but it's possible to do your best, and it's possible to learn from something that you can't really deal with. And so I think for me, it's about being optimistic and doing your best and just moving on.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Be optimistic. Learn from what's gone and move on. I like that.
And then repeat.
And then repeat. That's it. It's a constant cycle. And so obviously you're quite optimistic and positive. Tell me, what's your kind of what does the future hold for you? What's your next kind of steps, and where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't really I don't try to plan that in advance, to be fair, but I definitely I can tell you what I don't see myself doing. I definitely don't see myself leaving the industry, because this industry is something that I really, really enjoy, and I want to build my future here, and I want to build my career further here. So I'm seeing myself somewhere in this industry, probably in a top management role somewhere, earning a lot of money, doing a lot of fun, big and exciting projects. But I definitely don't see myself leaving the industry.
As a final, I guess we're kind of wrapping up now, as a final thought, if any of our listeners or anybody wants to get in touch with you or ask you any more questions, where can they find you? Where can people find you?
I think the best way to find me is to follow me on LinkedIn. So my full name is Ekaterina Andreeva, and I'm head of business development at Chapman Freeborn.
And just like that, the first episode of That Aircargo Girl is over. I cannot believe it. Thank you so much, Ekaterina. It's been brilliant to chat with you. If you want to find out more about Ekaterina, you can head to her LinkedIn. As always, you can carry on following my journey on TikTok and Instagram at That Aircargo Girl. And where most of you can find me is LinkedIn, where I provide daily and weekly updates on what I get up to in behind the scenes of my role, and also follow on the behind the scenes of this podcast. Really excited to be announcing that we'll be carrying this podcast on. It will be a monthly episode to begin with, and if I can squeeze a few more in around, filling those lanes of cargo, then we will hopefully have some more episodes. We'll be back in February with the next episode talking about sustainability. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in February for the next episode.